All right, man. You're tuned into the Hip Hop Uncensored podcast. I'm your brother, old guy from Hip Hop News Uncensored, and sitting across from me is my co-host.
What up? What up? It's your man Sam and Viral Hip Hop News. We're in the building on this Saturday, quarantine day number 6. I think we're in.
Yeah.
Getting it busy, man. Hopefully everybody's staying safe. But we got a special edition of the Hip Hop Uncensored podcast. Lenon Honor is in the building. Mr. Honor, how you doing today, family?
Well, I'm doing good, brothers. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Nah, pleasure's all ours, man.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate you, taking your time out, to come speak to our platform. It's been a long time coming.
Yes, sir.
But you're here now. I just want to kind of just open things up. Everybody knows you. A lot of people know you, I should say, for the Umar Johnson, the documentary, and some of your work you've been doing on him. But introduce yourself. Give us a little bit of the backstory before we get into the meat of the conversation of who you are, some of your motivations, what you do. We can go from there.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Lenon Honor. In the first place, I'm a husband and father. My wife and I, we just celebrated our 19-year anniversary a couple of days ago. We have 5 beautiful children. And I've done a lot of work online dealing with media manipulation, mind control. I did a lot of early work dealing with conspiracy theory and critical analysis. I also got into metaphysics and spirituality, and then I kind of transitioned into personal development. What kind of man am I? Can I improve? What areas of my life can I improve on as a husband, father, as a man, so forth and so on. And then more recently, I've been kind of dealing with issues related to Umar Johnson, and in particular with his school scam, which over the last 3 months or so, I've kind of picked up and done more. And then I did a documentary. And when you say about, in terms of motivation, I think one of the most important things that I've attempted to represent is, a man who is attempting to be the best husband and father that he can be. And when we have people in the community who are epitomizing the worst examples of manhood, of fatherhood, and masculinity, I think it is my responsibility. I also think it's other men's responsibility to stand up on their square and speak out against that type of behavior. So that's one of the motivating forces as to why I decided to do the documentary.
I know that I was introduced to you personally from the Umar Johnson documentaries. We have a couple people in our circle that got me hip on what you got going on, and I really admire your work. I wanted to ask you, when were you when were you initially introduced to Umar Johnson, and were you a supporter in the beginning? Because I know when I was first introduced to Umar, I was a supporter of his. I think I was introduced by old guy back in maybe 2011, 2012. And when I first saw the man and listened to what he said, I was a supporter. I rocked with him. I appreciate what he said. I was a supporter of the school, etc. So I was curious to know when you were introduced to Umar, and were you a supporter, or were you kind of thinking it was bullshit from the jump?
Yeah, well, I'll answer the second question first, and that is, I knew that it was bullshit from the jump. I was first introduced to Umar Johnson. I remember on Facebook, I had a Facebook friend. It was a female. She sent me a link to a crowdfunding campaign that he had put up for the St. Paul's College. And that was, I don't remember. Oh, dog, you maybe remember what year that was. That had to at least been, 5 years ago?
At least. Yep.
Yeah. So it was around that time. And when I just seen that video in and of itself, I knew that what he was doing was not legitimate. There was no business plan. There was no sense of the economic or financial viability of the school. There was no sense that he had a team working with him, a board of directors, teachers in line, teachers on deck, an accountant on deck, lawyers, so forth and so on. And from that moment, I already knew. I said, no, this is a scam. And from that time, what has happened, I have a saying that time always tells the truth. Over the last 5 years, it has been revealed that, this school scam is, in fact, a scam. And Umar Johnson, what he is doing in terms of manipulating people, taking advantage of vulnerable black people, and in particular, single black mothers, using their fears against them about their black boys, this is wrong. From the jump, it was wrong. And as of right now, he has gone so far off the hinges that no one can deny that this is indeed a scam. And it is also a tragedy. It's a waste.
Absolutely. Now, we had a probably about almost an hour conversation with his father, sitting up. He's in the other room now, Umar Johnson's father. And he seems to believe, for whatever reason, like he just may be feeding people this just to get people going. One, he denied him pretty much being on drugs, saying there's no proof. He pretty much said, we don't know what happened with the money. We're just speculating. We don't really know because we didn't see. How do you feel about the naysayers that come to your page and other people say you really don't know, you're just kind of just speculating, or like, what's your motivation for coming after this guy as well? I know you hear that a lot.
Yeah, well, I kind of alluded to the motivation part already. I would add to the motivation part that, again, it is an issue of honor. You know, and I'm just going to be real with it. As black men, we are not necessarily, many of us, we have not been raised with this sense of honor. And what I'm really speaking to is that it is one of our primary responsibilities to protect and defend our women and our children.
Right.
And so here we have Umar Johnson, who's been preying, he's a predator. He's been preying on these single black mothers in particular. He's been using their sons and the fears that they have for their sons against them. And he's been running this school scam campaign now for over a decade. And with no true and real results. Well, that's something that is motivation enough for me to speak out, because it's wrong. It's ethically wrong. It's morally wrong. And anytime this type of thing happens, where we have black men preying upon single mothers and using their sons against them in this way, and then also calling for the murder of these same black boys, no, it's enough motivation for me to speak out. And I think that more men, more black men in particular, should speak out. That's part of your responsibility as a black man. As for Umar Johnson's father, I'll just say this briefly. I know this is a very difficult time for him, because I dropped the documentary, and that was not in my plans. But Umar Johnson went to the issuing of physical threats. He tried to get people to come to my home to confront me, as it were. And by proxy, he puts my wife's life in jeopardy, my children's life in jeopardy. I don't know where y'all come from, but where I come from, that shit is not tolerated. And so what I did, I'm not with all that tough Tommy talk and tough Tony talk. I'm not with all that. I'm like, look, it is what it is. I said, okay, what I'll do is I'll put together a documentary and I'll just lay it on the line. I got plenty more. A part two will be coming as soon as Umar Johnson get up here and start showing his ass again. Okay, fine. I'm not going to be going back too much with all the chit chat and talking. I'll put together another documentary. In terms of Umar Johnson's father, it's clear to me, and I know it's a difficult time. I know it is. He's in denial. It's not uncommon for parents to be in denial about their children. I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it with certain relatives. We know that this boy is doing wrong. In particular, I have relatives gang banging and doing all kind of craziness. I don't mean to say too much, but the mama says, oh no, he don't know no better. That's what they used to say. He don't know no better. No, he ain't doing no wrong. Okay, well then, he's been in and out of prison now. He's getting caught up in all kind of foolishness. See, we have to be honest about what we're dealing with. And in particular, we, as parents, we got to be honest about what our children are doing. If my son gets out here and act a fool, whether that is in school or in the home, that's my job to check him on that. I'm not going to make no excuses. We've been doing too much excuse making for black boys and for black men. That shit has to stop, because it puts us in a disadvantaged position. Well, the same thing applies to Umar. So many people look, you're tearing down a black man. That's one of the primary excuses. You don't know what's going on. If I play for you all Umar Johnson calling for the murder of 10% of black boys, and then y'all gonna come and tell me that somehow I don't know what his mental state is, and I don't know what his orientation is towards black boys, you gotta be out your damn mind. It's not even intelligent. So just to be clear, Umar Johnson's father is in denial. And I understand that, because I've seen a lot of that in my life. But the difference is that in terms of how I'm raising my boys, I make no excuses. If you mess up, I'm calling you to task. If I get a phone call from one of your teachers, I'm calling you to task. If you up here acting a fool at home, I'm calling you to task. And see, when we don't do that, what ends up happening is the behavior continues to perpetuate. And then you have people like Umar Johnson come onto the scene and basically pillage the African American community or the black community for a decade, scamming people of over $1 million with nothing to show for it. And we still make an excuse for this type of behavior. It's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
We have Mr. Johnson in the building. We had a great conversation. Well, I want to give that man the benefit of a doubt with these couple of things. I think that people unfairly, and I'm not saying you're guilty of this, Mr. Honor, but I think that people, they box him and his son together, and they automatically deem him guilty as well. I asked him if he had any involvement in the scam, and he looked at me like I was absolutely crazy, because these are things that are going on. We also talked about him defending his son and him being honorable to his son, and it automatically makes me reflect to my 11-year-old son and having conversations with him. No matter what you do, son, I want you to know that I should know that you could trust me and I have your back. And I think this is what's going on with Mr. Johnson right now, where it's just he's going to ride with the ship until it goes down, because he loves and he honors his son. But he did say some things about you that I want to have you speak on, just fairly. He called you a wolf in sheep's clothing. Do you have any idea why he would call you that?
Can you hear us?
I can hear. I'm trying to see I'm trying to see the psychological orientation of someone who would say something like that. I'm that's why I haven't responded. I can't say. I don't know. I don't know why. To be honest with you, it's irrelevant because Umar Johnson's father is not the focal point of Umar Johnson in terms of me exposing Umar Johnson for the fraud that he is. See, the thing is this: if Umar Johnson's daddy had taken a step back and not been vocal publicly, then his name wouldn't even be in the mix. So if your son is out here committing fraud for a decade, and you have the option to either say something or not say something publicly, and you say something publicly, well, then you're going to get what you're going to get from people's response. That ain't got nothing to do with me. I've never said that somehow he was part of the scam or anything like that. I do know one thing, that he is in denial. And this is what it is. This is what I want to point out. See, if a father is in denial about his son, and his son's behavior, his son's mental state, his son's situation when it comes to substance abuse, his son preying upon the African-American community or the black community, or preying upon single black mothers, if he's in denial of all that and he's willing to ride it out and go down with the ship, then anyone that calls out Umar Johnson for the fraud that he is, that person, the father, is going to perceive them as sheep, as a wolf in sheep's clothing. You guys see what I'm saying? But the truth of the matter is that his son, historically speaking, and the evidence is all there, for the last decade, he has been the one who is the wolf in sheep clothing. I think that's what the psychological makeup is, because he's still in denial of the truth that his son is a scammer. That's what that is.
He called you a scammer. He called us a scammers. He said anybody in YouTube right now is pretty much scamming something, so to speak.
This is what I call a diversionary tactic. In other words, at any time he's called to task about his son, he will redirect and he wants to call out somebody else. Well, no, deal with your son. See, that's part of the problem. Because I would propose that Umar Johnson's behavior is not something that he came into later on in life. I have a sense that he had a history of certain types of behavior and his father didn't check him properly. And so here we are all these years later, and now we got a 60-plus-year-old man trying to defend a 45-year-old man. And again, the way to defend your son is not to call those who call him out, call them scammers. No, what you need to do is admit the truth that your son is in fact a scammer, and that what he is doing out here in these internet streets is wrong. That's the honorable thing to do.
You did a documentary, Lenon, last week you premiered it?
Yes, sir.
Umar Johnson. I personally thought it was phenomenal work. Great job. Very well put together.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson seems to believe that some of the facts in the documentary are lies. In particular, I don't want to speak for him, but one thing that he questions is the email that you were sending us in regards to the man that was the plumber that was offering Umar Johnson help. Can you speak along those lines? When did the gentleman reach out? Have more people reached out? Just give a little more context of people that reached out to you.
Yes. And again, this is denial. And to be honest, brothers, I can care less what Umar Johnson's dad has to say about anything. The way I look at it is, if your son is out here doing wrong, either you don't say nothing or you tell the truth. Don't make excuses. We got too much of this bullshit excuse making, and it's been going on for generations now. I don't tolerate it in my own home, and I don't expect to, and I'm not going to be tolerated from some grown folk who are older than me. This is ridiculous. As it relates to the evidence that I presented inside the documentary, I'm not here to persuade anyone otherwise. In terms of the legitimacy, that's on y'all. The way I look at it is that I've received a lot of information over the last three or 4 years. And in particular, over the last year dealing with Umar Johnson, most of which I have not released. I'm going to say something. For those of y'all who have watched the documentary, I actually went easy on Umar Johnson when it comes to the receipt aspect of this. Because there's information that has come to me. I'm not going to say it here. But I want you guys to understand that I do go through a process of engaging in critical analysis of any information that people send to me. That is the right thing to do. I look at it as like a journalistic approach, and you have to make sure, at least to a certain degree, that it is legitimate. There was someone who sent me information. This goes back to January of 2019, January of 2019. And this was in advance of Umar Johnson making the announcement that he acquired the abandoned buildings in Wilmington, Delaware. And this person told me up front, he said, she said, I'm going to tell you this right, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm going to tell you this right now. Umar Johnson is about to acquire this school in Wilmington, Delaware. Now, this was about a month before Umar Johnson made the announcement. And I told them, how do you know this? And then they went through this whole process of explaining why. Come to find out, when February 9th or 6th, somewhere around there comes around, Umar Johnson makes the announcement. So the way that I look at that is that if someone sends me information about Umar Johnson in advance of him making a particular announcement, and what they said a month later turns out to be true, well, in this case, this person would be considered a viable a resource, as it were. Someone who has internal information that I can trust. They're trustworthy. Well, listen, when it came to the plumber, this guy was trustworthy. In point of fact, I'm going to tell you guys something. He was hurt. See, this is another thing I don't think people are really kind of grasping. The damage that Umar Johnson is doing to those who have followed him, but also those who have reached out to support him. He's taken advantage of people. If you send him money, he's fine. But if you want to send him help, time, and quote unquote labor, now he's not going to want to deal with you. Well, there are people who are willing to put forth, the guy said 40 hours. He had 40 hours vacation time. He says that his company allows a certain amount of time each year for them to do work for free. If you're going to present that opportunity to Umar Johnson and he doesn't follow through, well, that's going to hurt you as someone who's willing, not only a Umar Johnson follower, but willing to work for free, willing to get a group of brothers to go up there and work, HVAC and plumber. So this is all to say that I do my due diligence. And again, Umar Johnson's father, he's in denial. And when you're in denial, one of the things that you will do is you will try to find anything that you can kind of grasp onto and discredit. And then you ignore everything else. Well, the way that I look at this is, why don't you then, therefore, if you got a problem with that, look at all the other evidence and deal with that and be honest about that. That's the honorable thing to do, and that's the intellectually sound thing to do.
Absolutely, Brother Lenon. Do you feel like there are other people involved with this scam? Because I heard you allude to it on a few of the videos that was a part of the information that you didn't put out, that it could be information that there's other people who was aiding and abetting this thing that are benefiting off this Umar Johnson scam.
Yes, there are other people involved, but my focus is Umar. Just like, Umar Johnson's father is not my concern. There are people who are involved. I'm not so much concerned about them, because the truth is that there are people who came on board a little bit later on in the school scam, but there are also people who came on board who have been around for quite a long time. I want to put this another way and rephrase this. You have platforms online who have promoted Umar Johnson heavily. And they've had him on and exposed him to their audience, and then now he has a new crop, as it were, to be able to be able to scam out of. In other words, be able to turn more people into a resource. The way that I look at it is that these individuals are, to a degree, partially responsible for what has taken place. So it's not just people who are benefiting directly dealing with Umar Johnson. It's also the people who are benefiting indirectly by having him on their platforms, growing their platform, but then in the process putting Umar Johnson in the position to continue to scam a new audience. So this ought to say, yes, there are more people involved, but my focus is Umar Johnson.
Right. And I heard you, say, a lot that you want to see this brother get help. And I do honestly think that you're genuine in that when you say that you want to see him get help. What is the next step? Where do you see this going next? Because everybody's saying, how come if he's doing this, how come the police didn't get him? And, he did get to school and this. So what do you see in the next year going on with this whole Umar Johnson school scam? How do you see it ending up?
Yeah, I'm just going to put it this way. What I would like to see is for intervention to take place, and making excuses for him and defending him. That's not intervention. And a lot of people, I think even as followers, you guys think that that's the right thing to do. That's not the right thing to do. Umar Johnson does need help, but it's not in the form of people defending his fuckery. I'm just going to be real with the excuse the language. That's not how you're going to help Umar Johnson. The way that you help Umar Johnson is helping or is putting him in a position to recognize that what he is doing is wrong, that what he has done is wrong, and also for him to recognize that he has some issues, personal issues that he needs to resolve. That's the mental health part. That's also the substance abuse part. Being in denial of this is not going to help Umar Johnson. What I would like to see is intervention. What I would like to see is for more people to say, hey, look, Umar Johnson, you need to get help. And help is not money. None of that money is going to renovating this school. He's been talking about renovating this school for over a year now. Hasn't nothing been done. He's been collecting money for over a year for renovations and ain't nothing been done. Then you got people who are trying to help him for free and he's not accepting the help. Why? Because he has no intention of getting the building renovated. He has no intention of opening up a school. He just wants to get that money. It is what it is. That's not help. See, I'm gonna say it like this. Black folk, we have this problem that when it is our son, when it is our cousin, when it is our uncle, when in general, and they need help, we go into denial mode. And we think that the way to help them is to continue to allow them to self-destruct. No, that's not the way to help them. What you do is you check them. You check them and you try to assist them in getting the help. That's what I would like to see. But I'm gonna tell you, two brothers, at this point, the probability of something like that happening is very, very low because Umar Johnson's ego is so huge and his supporters are basically enabling him to self-destruct. And as long as you have those two things going on, it's going to continue to fuel Umar's self-destruction. This is all to say that I'm not going to project what I think will happen. I'm just going to say what I would hope would happen. And what I would hope is that he gets the proper intervention.
Do you ever believe that purchasing a school and opening it up for young black boys was ever genuine? I believe Ogai and I kind of disagree on this. I don't think it was ever genuine. I think it was a scam to begin with. I think Ogai, you kind of believe it was, and it was kind of bit over his head. I don't want to speak for you. How do you feel about that?
I felt like that he had purposes, aspirations of opening up a school, but the money started coming in and everything just got over his head. And then instead of him coming forward and getting proper help, he's trying to just scramble and, make something happen that really can't happen. He don't have good foresight of what to do as a businessman.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So what is your thoughts on that? Was it ever genuine? Do you think it was a scam from the jump? I would like to hear your thoughts on that.
No, I don't think that it was ever genuine. I think that it was always about money from the beginning. And that's why there's video clips that go back many, many years now that illustrate that his focus has always been on money. See, if your orientation is such that, look, I'm going to do whatever I can he don't even deal with black boys. I want y'all to everyone think about that. Umar Johnson does not deal with black boys directly. He deals with single mothers. Why? Because the black boys they're not the financial resource, but these single black mothers are. You see, what I'm saying here is that the school scam was simply the carrot to dangle in front of people, and not just single black mothers, but black folk in general, that somehow this is the solution, this is the answer. That's just to carry people and kind of move them, keep them going for the last decade. Come on, people, it's been a decade. Mm-hmm. And now if Umar Johnson was serious and genuine, what he should have done from the beginning has been he should have been strictly focused on this school. He would have given consistent updates where he's talking about how much money he has collected. Here we go. Mm-hmm. He's talking about the budget. He's talking about what his business plan is, the business model. He's talking about his board of directors. He's talking about the teachers and staff that he's thinking about hiring. He's talking about the curriculum. I mean, he's talking about all of the insurances that need to be placed in order for him. And all this will be itemized on a list. He's going to show you guys, look, this is the building that we're looking at right now. This is what needs to be done if we do acquire this particular building. Well, we need to have an itemized list of everything that needs to be repaired. This is how much it's going to cost to be. All of this would have been the focal point, and this would have been the focal point for the last decade of his life. But what we have seen, that's not what we've seen. What we've seen is that Umar Johnson continues to beg for money, and he's traveling all over the world. Why? How are you going to build a school and you're serious about building a school and you're not even near the school? When is the last time y'all seen Umar Johnson up at this school? How many times have you seen Umar Johnson up at this school over the last 6 months? He's not serious. And again, we could say, well, no, he's not serious now. No, he was never serious. If he was serious from the beginning, then he would have come from a legitimate place and he would have had his ducks in orders in terms of legally speaking, a legal entity called FDMG. He would have also had all the accounting. It would also have been an open book, and he would have expressed to everyone exactly how much money he has collected, how much money he needs, how much more money is going to be needed, and he would have kept people in the loop. He didn't do that. And the reason why is because it was always about the money. More specifically, he wanted to make sure that he can continue to collect money without any accountability so no one can question him about the money, because that's ultimately what the goal was. It's not about saving black boys. If you're calling for the murder of black boys, come on, people. You're calling for the murder of our sons. Why is it that, how is it even possible for me to even come to believe on any level that somehow you're serious about opening up a school for black boys, these same black boys that you want to murder?
Would you be open to, I had a chance to check out one of Umar's lives, and he said, he asked the people, he was like, should I confront my haters? Should I go on a live with them? Should I do an interview with them? Would you actually be open to do an interview with Umar Johnson on your platform if he was willing to do that?
Umar don't deal with men. Have you guys been able to get him on your platform?
Yeah, we tried many times.
Yes, sir.
In support and you know what I mean, not in support.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Old dog, you've been a stout supporter of Umar Johnson, yes?
Yeah, I mean, a long time, since the beginning, definitely.
So if you all can't get him on, even when you were supporters, you best believe I wouldn't be able to get him on. And the thing is this, that Umar Johnson does not deal with men. Umar Johnson deals with people people that he perceives to be weak and vulnerable. And I'm gonna tell you all, the people that he sees as weak and vulnerable are single black women. That's why when you see him, when he goes on, does interviews, rarely do you see him being interviewed by black men. You'll see him being interviewed by black women because he sees them as weak and vulnerable. And he perceives you black women out there, that he can manipulate you all. I'm going to say one other thing, that Umar Johnson, on one hand, he doesn't deal with black men. But the other thing is that the only way that I would ever have him on my platform is if he was willing to come forth and tell the truth. In other words, that he's going to get up there and apologize to the people. He's going to get up there and tell, hey, look, this school scam is not going to happen. And I've blown the money, literally or figuratively. If he was willing to do that, I would be more than happy. But see, Umar Johnson is not at that place yet. See, sometimes it takes people to hit rock bottom. He's close to there already, but it takes them to hit rock bottom to where they realize, you know what, where I'm at in my life and what I have done, it is wrong. And now I need to make amends for that. Now, if he was willing to get up here and apologize to the people, then he can come on. I wouldn't have a problem with it at all.
Is it fair to blame anyone outside of Umar Johnson for the monster that is now Umar Johnson? Because he wasn't always like this. I can imagine. I don't believe so. But as the years went on and as popularity grew and as arrogance grew, he became what we see. So is anybody, in your opinion, to blame outside of Umar Johnson? His followers, family, what do you think?
Okay, I'm going to answer this two ways. I'm going to say that what Umar Johnson has become and what he has allowed himself to become is his responsibility. He's 45 years old, bro. You see what I'm saying? But you do bring up a good point, and that is that he has not always been like this. See, when I did my documentary, I mean, I have so much video footage, and see, if Umar wants to come out and act a fool, then I'm going to drop the next part. I have so much footage, and I have old footage too. And if you guys go back and you go look at how Umar Johnson carried himself back then, you look at how he dressed, how he presented himself, there was a level of humility that was there. Not only that, he was sharp too, mentally sharp. His mind, how it was working back then, he was real sharp. His delivery, when he would speak in front of the audience, there was something about it. You were like, wait, no, he has a gift for this. You could I'm talking about, you guys go back 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. But see, what has happened is we have seen him self-destruct. And I'm going to say this, that it is my belief. Okay, now we're talking about beliefs here. Okay, my documentary is straight facts. This is out of Umar Johnson's own mouth. But I'm going to give you guys my opinion, my personal opinion. I have a sense that Umar Johnson, some of these characteristics have been part of him since childhood. The manipulation part, the habitual lying, he's a habitual liar. He lies all the time. That's not something that is more recent. This is something that is part of his character. And those are the types of things. Even having this negative view towards black women. I know people want to believe it because he'll say some wonderful things from time to time about black women. But if you're getting up here calling black women thoughts, as it were, because they've been molested, raped and molested, are little girls, there has to be an underlying theme of hatred towards black women, hatred towards black girls. I have a sense that that goes back to childhood. And this is to say that those are the types of behaviors that should have been checked early on. Those are the types of behaviors as fathers that when we see certain things in our sons or in our daughters, we have to be there to check them on that, not to make excuses. And what I have seen for Umar Johnson, in my opinion, is that there's been so many excuses that have been made for him throughout his life that now he feels as if he can get away with anything. And so here we are all these years later, and look how far he has fallen. He's doing live streams in parks, yelling at his phone. If any of y'all walked into a park and you saw someone sitting there yelling at their phone like this and acting a fool, you probably would go the opposite direction. If you're trying to bring your children there and he's going off and yelling in his phone, acting a fool, you probably would go in another direction. Well, this is where Umar Johnson is at. And one of the reasons why he is there is because people continue to make excuses for him. This has to stop. Hold him accountable, because making excuses won't save his life. See, making excuses for a lot of these young boys when they was coming up, that's what led them on the path to getting put in prison later on in life. Making excuses for a lot of these men, this is what happens. This has contributed to a lot of the reason why we have so many broken homes. And you got some of these men who got 3, 4, 5 baby mamas because we make excuses. And I'm not just saying that we make excuses as men. Women, some of y'all black women make these excuses too. This has to stop because it's not going to fix the problem.
When he issued those threats to you, Monty Woodgrain, anti-Afro Sengalis, all the people that he issued those threats to, what do you think the reasoning was behind that? And did you take any action since then? Because we all heard those threats that came out.
Yeah, I've taken action. See, Umar Johnson, this is an act of cowardice. He didn't make those threats because he was going to do anything. Talking about he gonna roll up and pull up. He ain't rolling up and pulling up on shit. This is just the rhetoric. This is the rhetoric of an immature male who doesn't take any level of criticism well. Umar Johnson has a very difficult time when people criticize him. Umar Johnson has a very difficult time when people reveal the truth about him, in particular about his character, his scam. We all remember the SETI beef. One of the reasons why he went crazy on that SETI beef was because SETI was talking about this issue of Umar Johnson preying upon these black women. That it wasn't just about the black boys, it was the black boys that was the carrot to get you close enough so that he can prey upon you. That's why Umar Johnson, whenever he talks, I mean, a lot of what he talks about, it goes back to black women. It goes back to these single black mothers. Very rarely is it about the black boys. The point that I'm getting to is that Umar Johnson issuing those threats, it was not him proposing to me that somehow he's going to run up and pull up, because he know he ain't about that life. This e-thugging, it's just not what come on now, please stop it. And on top of that, I'm not the one. I'm not with all that tough talk either, but I'm not the one. Umar Johnson, what his hope was that some of his followers would do his dirty work. But I want you guys to think about this. And see, I didn't even put this in the documentary. Umar Johnson has a history of this behavior. And I'm going to tell you guys something right now, just to illustrate to you all the type of person, the type of a coward. See, a real man would say, look, okay, I'm going to step to you. And they wouldn't even be all this tough Tommy talk. He would just do it. Umar Johnson, on the other hand, he wants to get other people to do it for him. Well, look at this. It was about 2.5 years ago where Umar Johnson was asked about his child support situation. I didn't even put this inside the documentary.
I remember.
And Umar Johnson starts to go on this rant. And what he does is he gives out, y'all hear me on this. You single black women, and you men who are of integrity, you hear me on this. He proceeds to give out his baby mama's business address, gives out her name, gives out the baby mama's mama, talking about the grandmama's name and business address, and then gives their business addresses, hours of operation, and then encourages his followers to go up there and confront the baby mama and the baby mama's mama, the grandmama. Not only is he putting because you don't know who's listening. See, he tries to get other people, he wants to incite violence. He wants to incite his followers to commit these violent acts. Not only does he put one of his baby mama's life in jeopardy, he puts the grandmama's life in jeopardy, and he also puts his own daughter's life in jeopardy, because what if she's there when these people, quote unquote, go up there to confront his baby mama? What kind of man regardless of how you may think about the baby mama or the baby mama's mama. What kind of man would put the mother of his daughter's life at risk and the grandmother's life at risk, and by proxy, his own daughter's life at risk? You see, so it's not that Umar Johnson was man enough to go up there and confront. No, what he wants to do is to get one of his followers to go up there and confront his baby mama, the grandmother, and then also by proxy putting their lives in jeopardy and also putting his own child's life in jeopardy. What kind of man? This all to say, I've taken action, and see, this documentary would not have even premiered. I wouldn't even have done the documentary if he hadn't tried to put my family's life in jeopardy. See, if you guys go back, you may not be aware of this, but before I decided to do the documentary, I told people, I said, look, next week is going to be my last Umar Johnson video, and I'm going to be moving on. I'm going to be making a transition. And so everyone was expecting that. That following week, that's when Umar Johnson issues the physical threats. He tried to put my information out there. He put other people's information out there. He wants to encourage people to come see us, etc. So in my mind, I was like, okay, well, I could just walk away from this. And I'll talk to my wife about it. And what my wife says, no, you can't. And I had to think about that for a moment. If I walked away at that point after he did what he did, well, then that would show a lack of character, lack of courage on my part. And I'm not about that shit, people. I'm just not. You have to be a man of integrity. You have to be a man of honor. You're going to try to jeopardize my family and I'm going to walk away? No. I said, okay, I'm not going to be going back and forth with all this tough Tommy and tough Tony talk. I'm not all with all that. What I'll do is I'll put together a documentary. See, if he wouldn't have acted the fool in that way, the documentary would have never been produced. This is to say that ultimately, Umar Johnson, it's not anybody else destroying Umar Johnson. You're trying to tear another, no, that's not what this is. What it is that Umar Johnson is self-destructing. And every time he says something or does something like this, there is a consequence. And part of my job as a family man is, look, if you're going to put out those types of physical threats, well, there's going to be a consequence. And it ain't about all this tough Tommy talking, I'm going to do this. No, I'm not all with that. I'm going to use my skill set. I'm going to use my talents. I'll use your own words against you, and I'll produce a documentary on that ass. And that's exactly what I did.
Talk on the people who say you're not qualified to speak on his alleged drug abuse. You're not qualified to speak on his psychoanalysis. Talk to the naysayers who believe you're not even qualified to speak, or anybody who speaks against Umar Johnson aren't qualified to speak on that. Talk about maybe some of the research you've done. Talk about the extent to which you went through to get the information that you've gotten to provide it for the people.
Mm-hmm. Well, listen, the way that I look at this is that it's one thing to see something and be in denial. It's another thing to see something and acknowledge what you are seeing. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to put this on two levels. When it comes to being able to assess whether or not someone is on a substance, has a substance abuse issue, I grew up around this shit. And there's nothing like personal experience in seeing it within your own household from a young child and see someone self-destruct from early child and see the whole process up until the age of 14. On top of that, when you're, see, this is the thing, for the life of me, I have not quite yet figured this out. How is it possible that black folk from the streets, and they see all types of shit every single day? Mm-hmm. How is it possible for you to see it and acknowledge it in them streets, but then when you see it in Umar, you're in complete denial? See, it's not an issue of qualification. It is an issue of being honest. And it doesn't serve Umar to be in denial. If Umar... Now, I was planning on saving this for the part 2 of the documentary. I'm just going to share this with you all, that going back over a year ago, when this individual reached out to me with information about the buildings in Wilmington, that Umar Johnson was going to acquire them. This was in advance of Umar Johnson making the announcement, so this person is a reliable source. They were already talking about the issue as to why it was that Umar Johnson did not have a board of directors. And y'all brothers want to know why?
Absolutely.
Of course.
Well, this person explained that the reason why Umar Johnson didn't want a board of directors, or a team for that matter, is because he would therefore be held accountable financially for what he was doing with the money. And y'all want to know what they told me over a year ago, what he was doing with the money, in part what he was doing with the money?
Yes, sir.
Or what you think?
Extending off that, right? Does Umar Johnson have any of the donation money left? Is he saving some? In your opinion, what do you think is the I guess you could say what's the 411 on the money? What do you think?
Yeah, I can't say whether he has any left. If you are in parks and you have been evicted and you are homeless and you are unkept and you're live streaming now in your car and it's cold, and I've seen Umar Johnson where he's doing like this, just trying to stay warm while he's doing his live streams. People, you have to understand that this is self-destruction, and supporting this is not going to help Umar Johnson. All of this, just from what I have seen, I don't think that he has much of any money left. And that's one of the reasons why he has gotten so desperate. To the point where there is a woman, I don't know if you guys saw this video, there was a woman who had sent him, I think it was $20. And he was doing this live streaming, and he said something to the effect, you know, I appreciate that, but next time make it 40.
Mm-hmm. So,
Did y'all see it?
yep.
Yeah.
And was it 20 or was it 10? I can't remember.
I think it was 10. He said next time make it 20 or something.
Okay, yeah, this is what I mean. Like, no, have some grace, have some appreciation for people who send in their hard on. Your ass ain't working a job. You don't have a legitimate business. You don't have no gainful employment, and yet people are sending you money like this and been doing so for over a decade. Be thankful. Be gracious. Say thank you. No, what he does is says, no, you know, you send me 10, but next time make it 20. If you're behaving like that, that is because you are in dire straits. And I'm gonna tell you all, getting back to the email, I know I didn't say it. One of the reasons why he is so dire, and if you guys look very carefully, whenever there is an influx of donations, y'all will see this, and I've seen this pattern play itself out over the last 3 years. Whenever he gets an influx of donation, you'll see that shortly thereafter, his physical health begins to deteriorate. His physical appearance begins to deteriorate. How he dresses begin to deteriorate. He starts to walk and the clothes are all wrinkled. And then also where he's doing these live streams begin to, now he's in the park doing live streams. Now he's sitting in his car freezing doing live streams. Ladies and gentlemen, we can deny what we're seeing, but the truth of the matter is that from my vantage point, when Umar Johnson gets an infusion, he takes that money and uses that money to self-destruct. He takes that that money to go find whatever he can get in the moment so that he can deal with the addiction issues. And then after that, you see the steady deterioration. And then every once in a while, because I've noticed this more recently, you'll see him start to kind of restructure things. You'll see him maybe inside of a hotel now. You see now that his hair is cut, or at least kind of cut. You see that now his clothes, you can tell maybe he's washed his clothes a little bit more. Well, this cycle continues to perpetuate. And the thing that the scary part of this is that what I have noticed is that each time this cycle takes place, the depths that he falls to each time gets worse and worse and worse. And so that's what I'm saying. People, you sending him money, it's not going to benefit him. It's obviously not benefiting the school. What it does, it enables him to get back into this cycle of self-destruction. And then each time it gets a little bit worse. Anytime you get to the point where you're threatening women online, talking about you're going to pull up, this is indicative of this downward spiral, and each time he gets worse and worse and worse, which again gets back to the issue. What he needs is intervention. He doesn't need y'all's support. He doesn't need your donations. He doesn't need you rah-rah on his fuckery. What he needs is for someone to step in his life and help him to see that he needs to go and get help and get the proper intervention.
Absolutely, absolutely. And few more questions I want to ask you. This one being, so I'm looking at the chat room and I've seen this, and I've seen people say, well, he got to school. What do you say to those people who say, you know, you were saying that he wasn't going to get to school, he got to school. People are saying, you know, you don't really know what, again, you don't really know where the money went, but he did get to school. What do you say to that?
Yeah, this is very simple.
Right.
I mean, let's just think critically here. See, I have Umar Johnson saying that he needed another $1 million. If you say I need another 10, that means you already have 10. If you say I need another $100, old dog, that means you already got $100. I have video of Umar Johnson saying that he needed another $1 million, and then later in the same video, just to kind of be fair here, he says that he has almost $1 million, and that was back in 2017. So I want you guys to think about this for a moment. that if, in fact, over the last decade, you've been promising a school going all the way back to 2010, he made an announcement, that's in the documentary too, on his Facebook page, that the grand opening was going to be September 11, 2013. And over the next decade, 9 years at that point, over the next 9 years, you're steadily collecting donations. And at this point, over $1 million, who knows, it could be $2.5–3 million by now, but you're able to collect all this money. And then you get to the point where, okay, wait a minute, GoFundMe done shut you down. PayPal done shut you down. People aren't sending money like they used to, because y'all remember prior to him making that school announcement, there was a lot of people criticizing him, like, where's the school? When's the school gonna come? He kept saying, well, 2017, 2018, 2000. So what ended up happening is that the weight of it all was getting to him, and people weren't sending in the money. So what does he do? Well, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find the trashiest trap house that I can find for the cheapest amount of money that I can get it for. And I'm going to use this as a way to demonstrate that somehow I've made progress. But if you think about it, no, there is no progress, because all he's done is taken the money that people have given him, not his own investment, nothing that he has done. Other people's hard-earned money that he's been collecting for over a decade, and he buys these trap house abandoned buildings. Why would he do that? Well, he does, and it worked too, because I told people then, he did that to continue to perpetuate the scam. If I can show that I'm making some type of progress, I have the school now. No, you have 2 abandoned buildings. These are trap houses. No, that's all that you've done. But if I can show that to people, now that would get them excited. They're emotional. Oh, wow, he's finally made. And what are they going to do? They're going to start sending in that money. And that's exactly what took place. So what I'm saying is that Umar Johnson acquiring the school, it doesn't show progress, because all he's done is taken money that was given to him. It wasn't his money, it's other people's money. And what he did was he purchased these abandoned buildings in Wilmington. And this particular area, I know some people may not think that it's relevant, but no, it is absolutely relevant. This is one of the most crime-infested cities in the United States of America. There are many sex offenders. If you go online and do the research, just in a 1 mile vicinity, and there's also these toxic, I don't know what they call it, these brownfields in the area. Out of all the places, you're going to choose that? No, he chose that because that's what he was able to get in that moment for the least amount of money. And so therefore, now that you've put that money down, then you get an infusion of cash, and then you can perpetuate the scam for another year, almost another year. We're going to be getting close to what, a year and two more months. Yep. This is just kind of putting the carrot out there to kind of get people to continue to donate. And that's exactly what has happened.
Right. I got one more question now. I'll turn it over to you. I've seen the pattern myself, and I actually do believe your sentiments when you say that. I think that he scrambled just to buy the cheapest building, because he even says that he had the lowest thing he used to have was like 1 million. So he just went and got something for the cheapest just to keep the thing going. I do actually agree with that. I want to ask you about the pattern that I began to see is the sabotage or the blaming other people. He's been blaming the lawyer. And it seems like every time something goes wrong, he blames somebody. Well, the white lawyer did it, or my accountant messed it up. Talk about that pattern that I've seen and you and other people have seen with Umar Johnson.
Yeah, and again, I think that this is a pattern of behavior that goes back to his childhood that wasn't checked, and that is to make excuses and to blame other people. Black people, if you want to do something for your black boys, you don't do that. You don't make excuses, and you don't blame other people. You say, hey, look, son, you did what you did, and this is your fault, and now you're going to have to make this right, and there's going to be a consequence. I'll tell my boys, there's always going to be a consequence for whatever you do, good or bad. There's always going to be a consequence. You're going to have to deal with that. And you can't go around blaming other people. Blaming other people is disempowerment. You can't do that. Now, with Umar Johnson, this is a pattern of behavior that we see over. I mean, how far old are you want to go back? Remember, he tried to blame the conscious stripper. What did he blame the conscious stripper for?
Man, what was he reading for again? Pretty much lying on him?
Lying on him, but what did he say he allegedly lost because of her coming out?
Oh, that $1 million donation for the school from the basketball player, the mystery basketball player.
The mystery basketball player. No evidence of proof that there was a basketball player, but y'all feel me on this. A lot of basketball, they don't give a shit if you dealing with some strippers, because many of them, they dealing with strippers. Come on off the bullshit. You know what I'm saying? But see, here's an opportunity. Instead of Umar Johnson holding himself accountable and say, hey, look, I was dealing with a stripper. Should I have been dealing with? Probably not, if I'm going to be helping these black boys. And yeah, she was a single mother, but the cookies, you know how Umar, he's always talking about cookies. That's cookies. Everything is about cookies with him. See, he could have come. If he had stepped up and said, hey, look, no, I've been dealing with a stripper, It's not a good look, and I promise you all, I won't be engaging in this type of behavior again. This was my fault. I'm a man, and I know what I was doing. I shouldn't have been doing that. She was a single mother. I took advantage of her. And see, that's one thing. But what does Umar do? He tries to blame her, and then on top of that, he concocts this story about how this is what caused him to lose out on $1 million. No, hold yourself accountable. He has a history of making excuses. Same thing with the white lawyer. He said he had this white lawyer who helped him with the preparation, with the documents for the school. Well, now you're blaming the white. Why did you hire a white lawyer if you're all pro-black? You know, but you always have to find someone else to blame for his failures. And I'm going to say this, and I don't mean to be harsh, but Umar Johnson is a habitual liar and a habitual failure. One of the things that I want to outline in the next document, and again, it depends on how he responds. If he gets to issuing physical threats and he wants to act a fool, then okay, fine. We'll do this part two. You guys, if you guys looked at all of the promises, and I can actually pull them up right now, that Umar Johnson has made, the things that he said that he was going to do for you all black people. We're going to have a Marcus Garvey, Guards of Garvey. We're going to have a vegan, non-alcoholic vegan black conscious sports bar. We're going to teach your sons how to float ships. We're going to teach your sons how to fly planes. I kid you not. We're going to have these yoga classes, and we're going to have conferences for the women. We're going to have fashion shows. We're going to have this book, a parent advocacy book. We're going to have the shockumentary. How is it possible that Umar Johnson can be talking about premiering this documentary since 2016? I have the receipts on this. He says it's going to premiere in 2006. It might have been 2014. And he's been collecting donations for this documentary, and it still hasn't come out. And all he's done is make excuses. And yet I can go about the process of producing a documentary in 3 or 4 weeks or so without collecting any donations and put it up here online. Well, the reason why is because Umar Johnson is a habitual failure. He fails. And that's why it is necessary for him to always blame other people, because he's unwilling to look at the fact that he has been a failure.
Damn. Final question, Lenon, that's all I got for you, is end game. What's the end game to this? What's the end game to Umar Johnson, in your opinion? What's your final straw? Like, how far does this go? Because now we obviously, with the documentary, incredible job. I think you've given people a lot of insight on what exactly Umar has going on, whether you agree with it, disagree with it, what have you. The information's out there, and a lot of the information is self-inflicted. So it is what it is. Yep. What's the end game?
Yeah, for me, the way I look at this is my approach is simply this, that I will continue to do live streams where I have people who, or I would encourage people to call in and talk with me and share their perspective in terms of what I revealed inside the documentary. That I think is something that I will do consistently. But in terms of me doing this part 2 of the documentary, that's contingent on how Umar Johnson behaves and how he reacts. It's totally up to him. Again, the documentary wouldn't even been done if he hadn't issued the physical threats and try to, put my life and my family's life at jeopardy. I mean, there's once you do that, I can't walk away. What I would like to see, and I said this earlier, what I would really like to see is for Umar Johnson to stop. Just stop this. And he can. He could simply say, look, I'm not going to continue to pursue this school scam. I'm going to let this go. And I apologize, and then check your. I'm saying this as if I'm talking to Umar. Check yourself into rehab, bro. Check yourself into rehab. Get the help that you need. In addition, see, once you get that help, you'll also be able to get the psychological help that you need too, because you're unstable emotionally and psychologically. That much is very clear. If you're getting up on here talking about Kobe Bryant was murdered by the NBA, and then the phone blows your phone down, and then you pick the phone up and you say, this is Mama Oya or whoever, and that's evidence. It doesn't prove that the NBA, but that's some damn good evidence because the wind blew my phone down. Bro, you have some psychological issues that need to be addressed. And I would hope that the end game for Umar Johnson is that he gets that type of help, because the alternatives are not as kind. See, and I don't want to say this earlier, but out in these streets, sometimes the best thing to happen to somebody is for them to get the intervention that they need. Sometimes the best thing is in some cases, I'm just be real with it, in some cases the best thing is for them to get locked up. In some cases, the best thing is for them to get into that rehab. In some cases, the best thing for them is for them to get the type of psychological help that they need. The alternative, continue to perpetuate this fraud, continue to scam the black community. The alternative can be a lot more worse. I don't want to put this out there, but what I'm saying is that I would much prefer Umar Johnson get the type of help that he needs so that he can save his life and continue on this path and ultimately self-destruct.
Absolutely. Well, before you get out of here, I know you got a program to do in about an hour and some change here. Let everybody know where they can follow you if they want to get in contact with you. The whole nine, Brother Honor. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you both for having me on too. I appreciate it. I've been following you all for quite some time. We have a mutual friend in Brother Darren, and I just want to say I'm proud of both y'all because I remember y'all was talking about getting the building.
We in the building.
You're in the building.
In the building.
You know, and you guys are legit. It's professional. You know, you get up there and you do your thing. You got the proper mics. You got the proper mic placement. You got the laptops. The background looks wonderful. That is an example of black excellence. It's also an example of black men doing what they say that they're going to do. And being open and honest with people about what their plans are, and you guys have achieved that. Umar Johnson has not. If people want to check out the documentary, they can visit my YouTube page, which is Lenon Honor, LENONHONOR. The documentary is Umar Johnson War on Black Boys. The video that, or the documentary, or the shockumentary that Umar does not want you to see. And what I would encourage is that even if you are Umar Johnson's follower, watch it from the beginning to the end. The one thing that I found very interesting is people's unwillingness, and I understand why, because fandom. You're a fan, and what happens a lot of times is as fans, we don't want to see the truth, and we don't want to be critical of the people that we're following. No, give it a look. Go from the beginning to the end, and at the end, then you decide. You know, you decide on whether or not he's worth you continue to support. And even if you want to support him, maybe you don't want to support him financially. And I'm going to say this as a last point. If you really want to support Umar Johnson, and if you really love Umar Johnson, what you would do is stop sending him money. What you would do is stop defending the types of things that he's saying. He's calling for the murder of black boys. This is unacceptable. Stop defending it. What you do is you hold him accountable. And then if you can, you help him to get the type of substance abuse help that he needs, the type of psychological help that he needs so that he can get his life turned around. And I'm going to say one last thing, brothers, that I'm going to tell you something, that if Umar Johnson decided to get his life turned around, and if Umar Johnson came out publicly and said, hey, look, you know, this school thing is a scam and I was wrong and I apologize and now I'm going to get my life together, and he checks himself into rehab, I will be his greatest fan. Because from that moment on, I will be cheering for him. I would do videos and I would offer encouragement to Umar Johnson. Why? Because I have seen so many black men go down this path. And see, so many of these black men did not redeem themselves when they could have. And Umar Johnson, you still have time to redeem yourself, bro. It's going to be a tough road ahead. But if you decided to get on that road, I would definitely be in your corner.
Excellent, man. We really appreciate you. Appreciate the people in the chat room on Uncensored Truth Podcast, LLC, and Hip Hop Uncensored Podcast. We got Lenon Honor in the building. He's going to be doing a live stream on his platform very soon. So guys, go ahead and check that out. I also want to give a special shout out. I will be remiss if I don't, to Mr. Johnson, father of Umar Johnson, who happens to be sitting in our lobby area right now. Had a very powerful discussion with that brother prior to this interview. So I would be remiss if I did not do that. Appreciate everybody.
Definitely, Lenon. So yeah, Lenon, we appreciate you. I'll definitely be tuning into your channel, you know, later on to see what you got to say. I don't know if Jamal Johnson wanted to come in. You're free to go, Lenon, if you want. I don't know if Jamal Johnson still wants to come in at the end of this and talk for a few minutes or not. It's up to him.
Mr. Johnson.
You sleep?
Nah, he's watching. Did you want to come on or you good? Did you want to come in or you good? You want to come in? Yeah, he wants to come in.
All right.
Lenon,
you can either go or you will talk to him for a few minutes. It's up to you, Lenon.
Now, you know, if I go, then it's going to be like Lenon. Nah, so try to put me in a position. Oh, okay.
Bring him on in. Make him on in.
I ain't going to say you on some bull. It's okay. Let's go.
Yeah. Oh man, he on that coronavirus stuff, boy.
Yeah, he ain't playing.
Oh, he ain't playing. Okay.
Everything with respect. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, for the people in the building right now who do not know who this man is, this is Mr. Johnson. He's the father of Umar Johnson. You want to grab that microphone right there, sir. And he is in the building. Mr. Johnson, how you doing this evening?
Okay, how you doing there, Leonard?
Good. How's it going?
I can't complain. How's the family?
Oh, the family's doing good. How are you? How have you been?
Hey, I'm great, man. You know, just trying to get ready for this shutdown that's going to be happening all over this country.
Okay.
You know, this virus thing, and of course, trying to keep us from killing us. That's my number one goal.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm good.
Now I know some things that motivated you to even come down here to meet with us personally, Mr. Johnson. The floor is yours.
Yeah, hey, Len, I'm going to ask you something too. When I say something about what you do, I'd like you to know that that doesn't cover everything you do from A to Z. If I don't like something you've done, like let's say I have some constructive criticism or some doubt about something you present, that means I don't agree. And I think everyone's open to disagree with you just as well as those who do agree with you. But that doesn't mean that I sign on to everything that you've done as being wrong. This documentary, which I didn't know I was going to be co-featured in.
It was an important element.
Okay, I mean, you do what you do. You do what you got to do. But I watched it very intensely. I probably watched it about 30 times now. And the part about the documents in reference to the plumber, I mean, people have to take your word for it because you didn't produce any name, addresses, and phone numbers. And I'm sure you wouldn't. But the thing is, a lot of things is built on trust. So I guess people have to trust that you're telling the truth. Whereas I believe that you trust but verify. And that being said, everything that even when you make your assessments, I know you're not, I don't think you're medically qualified to make any assessments on my son or anyone else that should be valid enough for people to just take it and run with it. I think they should also use some of their own discernment in reference to whether you know what you're talking about, number one, and whether they can back it up, number two. That does not in any way is not meant to insult or degrade you, because the bottom line is a lot of us are from the hood, but that doesn't mean that we still see the hood the same way. I mean, people on the West Coast see the hood different than us on the East Coast. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but I believe that. And some of us older people see the world different than some of you younger people. So, I mean, it's just a matter of not necessarily agreeing, but I do think we need to be able to agree to disagree. And I think that's one of our major problems.
Yeah, I don't think that was a question for me. The way I look at it is that there is an issue of denial. And no one in their right mind, in fact, you said it yourself, no doctor in their right mind.
No, I said who in their right mind?
Do I need to pull up the audio?
Go ahead.
All right. And you were referring to your son and him calling for the quote unquote Goonie Goons.
Exactly. I stand by that. I stand by everything I've said.
Yeah. Now, do you think that behavior, just that behavior, we can get into the Mama Oshun blowing off the phone, off the thing, and him saying that that's evidence that his assessment or his theory that Kobe Bryant was murdered by the NBA. That's another example. We can't say that someone who is in his right mind would make that type of a statement.
I would say that people who look at things rationally wouldn't necessarily see that as being something rational to do. But at the same time, I think rationality is determined by how you or those who believe like you see it. And I kind of brought that up, the last time I spoke to you. The people who continue to support a lot of these so-called black leaders out here, who to me haven't given us a darn thing. We have nothing to stand on, that they have been around for 30, 40 years, but still they have a following that just won't quit. Now, does that make those people irrational? Maybe to us they do. It does. But to them, you could not tell them that they're doing anything that's not normal. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, we're talking about your son, and you said it yourself, that behavior is not reflective of someone, it should not be reflective of someone of his educational background, his quote unquote upbringing, etc. So what I'm saying is that you were the one who made that statement. That's why I think it was important for me to include that in the documentary.
And I stick by that statement. I'll say it again, that it was a question. If you go back to the tape, you'll see it said, who in their right mind? And again, I'll go to the fact that a lot of people, as I'm sure you're aware, do things that seem stupid, but they may have an objective that you or I are not aware of. And frankly, with this internet world, I say, you you hear what you hear, but you don't believe everything you see. That's just the way I look at it. And like I said, we don't have to agree, but I want you to understand that just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean that if we weren't on this live that I would be calling you names or name calling or insulting you or degrading you, because that's not what I meant to do. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying too about the wolf in sheep's clothing is the fact that I think a lot, and I told these young men this too, I think a lot of the internet is about likes and views and whatever will attract, just like on TV, just like on TV. But that doesn't discount the stuff that you have shown to come out of my son's mouth. I mean, I'd be a fool to sit here and say that you made these things up. I saw it myself. I spoke on it before you even made the documentary. But one thing you need to understand is that even though you can be praised for how you are as a father and a man, I definitely don't believe that you're in a position to think you know enough about me or any other man to say that we're not this or that. There's some very good parents whose children, unfortunately, have done things that I'm sure they are so saddened to see, but they love them anyway. And I don't think that means that they're in denial. It means that they see what they see, and maybe everything they're not showing you may make you feel they're in denial. But everything doesn't have to be shown on this internet. And I agree with you too, that once I spoke publicly, I opened myself to whatever. But that's what fathers do if they can't find any other alternative of reaching out to their son about behavior that they don't condone.
If I could just respond, the one thing I noticed about you in particular is that to some degree you have made this about you. So when we talk about likes and views, remember, I had made a statement, a public statement, that I was going to discontinue doing videos on Umar Johnson, but then that's when Umar Johnson, shortly after that, that's when he made the threats of physical violence. He also tried to dox me, which ultimately he attempted to put myself and my family's life in jeopardy, just like he had done with your granddaughter and one of his baby mamas. This to say that at that point, I was willing to let it all go. But once he did that, there was no way that I could let it go. And so simply to say that people do this and that this means that there's sheep in wolf clothing, or wolves in sheep clothing, that somehow it's about likes and views. No, that's not the case in my case. Another way, if we want to use that logic therefore we can say that you coming up to the studio here today is an example of someone who's trying to get views, someone who is trying to get likes. I don't look at it that way. So this ought to say, let's be fair in the assessment. Again, my situation was such that I was in a position where I was going to walk away, but because of Umar Johnson's actions, that's when I decided to do the documentary.
I understand that, and I can appreciate that. I'm not going to say on the air how I came to be in this studio today, but it's a kind of unusual situation that caused me to be here. I will say that I don't have a platform where I need likes or that I reach out to people on this level here. This is out of my realm. So no, I'm not about that. What I am about, and it includes no matter who or what it is what's best for the community. I know for a fact, I don't sign on to everything that I've seen or heard come out of my son. These gentlemen here definitely know it, okay, because of our past history. But the bottom line is, and you say it's about me, it's not about me, it's about our community. And frankly, if I wasn't in the position I am in my community, I probably wouldn't be speaking to you right now or about any of this. But you're right, it does affect our community. And I am concerned about the people it affects, including my own family members who listen to some stuff that I don't think they need to be following. So, no, it's not about me. I truly believe that this is not something that benefits us. And in light of what's going on right now with this tense situation with the coronavirus, this is just another reason for our community to be that much more stressed. And I think that the violence, the negativity, the hostility that we show on these platforms are not beneficial, no matter how it's coming out. And as far as your sincerity in my son's well-being, I question it only because Just like, you and I don't agree, and you said that before, I just don't believe it. But that's okay. I'm not saying that to insult you. I'm just stating the fact as I see it. Okay?
All right. While we got you on, Mr. Johnson, I just want to ask you one question. A lot of people want to kind of get you caught up in this whole school scam as well and call you scammers. You've received threats. Just kind of talk about that. One, just ask you, are you involved in the Umar Johnson situation, your son's situation? And just elaborate on the threats and things that you've received as well.
Well, let me say from the beginning, I'm not a fan. I don't have a fan club at all for or against my son. People hate me for what I say against him, and they hate me for what I say for him. So when people say, well, you just out here rah-rah for your son, I don't. I mean, I'm looking at it straightforward as a man who's seen and heard things and have seen and heard things through his life and see where we are today. And so, I mean, I've been threatened by people because of my son, okay? And I've been threatened by people who don't like my son. So, I mean, this is not something that I look forward to doing. But the bottom line is this: one day, all this is going to go away. And he's still my son. So that does not mean I condone what he does. It does not mean I'm denial or ignorant of what I see. I know things that, Lenon, you don't know. And I'm sure you know, you couldn't know everything I know. But just take it for face value that, you being a father, I'm a father, we want the best for our kids. And if I thought I was seeing the best in my son, I wouldn't have gone out to a school and made that video, which I'm sure my son saw, and I'm sure he was extremely upset about. But I'm going to do what I have to do to reach my son. And if I could have reached him any other way, you would have never heard of Jamal Johnson.
Do you believe, I asked you this again, I asked you, when we're out there, that the school will ever open?
I believe that. I believe that the school, as my son has wanted it and stated it to be, probably won't come to fruition as that in that such way, especially with documentaries like this and all the negativity that's scrolling around about it. But I do believe possibly if he were to join with other people and maybe even take their lead on this thing, I really do believe it could possibly come to something not necessarily what he originally wanted it to be.
Mr. Johnson, you came all the way out here amidst all the stuff that's going on, and I want to thank you publicly for that. I really appreciate you coming out here and voicing what you have to say on the platforms. Anything else that you would like to say to Lenon and honor the people out there? Anything before we depart?
Yeah, to Lenon, to you and everybody else, man. This platform does not give us enough to truly have intimate conversations with people, or to share stuff that we don't know that we probably should know that will probably cause us to look at each other differently. So I think when we go and make these statements that sum up everything in 2 minutes or whatever, I don't think it's fair. I don't think I should say anything about you that I can't prove, or that maybe I don't know what's going on behind the scene. I just think we need to be men of distinction and men of honor. And just because I don't agree with everything that you say, which I do agree with a lot that you say, but the parts that I don't agree with, I should be entitled to be able to do that without you feeling that somehow I'm insulting you. I'm not. If I say to you that there should be some doubt about an email, I mean, that's just a trust but verify situation. That doesn't make you a dishonorable person. You just may not have provided enough information for me to say it's the truth. So, if you're getting from me that the stuff I didn't like about the video kind of somehow sheds you to be, for lack of a better word, forthright, then you're wrong. Because 90% of that video was my son. And he said what he said, and he did what he did. And the part that you used for me, I mean, every bit of it. Because I don't want to see my son's dream be destroyed. And to watch it after knowing the time, the effort, schooling that he put into it, it hurts me. But what hurts me even more is to look on the internet and see young men and young women who have been crushed, totally disappointed, by another so-called leader or whatever they want to call it. And I looked at one on my way down to here today, a young man, and how sad he was of what he thought about my son who he had been following for years. And I'm saying this not only to you, but to my son. I hope he thinks about people outside of himself and start acting accordingly. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, old dog, if you don't mind, if I can just pose 3 questions.
You know what? Yes.
Absolutely.
Go ahead. But
Yeah,
please don't be offended. By
oh no, not at all. Jamal, I'm not. I don't take anything that you said personally at all. It's not like I just don't. I'm just. That's just not me. You did speak of men of honor, and I take that very seriously, simply because I think that if we are going to change the condition of black folk in general, that it's going to take men of honor to make that happen. And part of that aspect of honor is to be the preserver and protectors of life. That means that we are to be on the front lines to defend our women and defend our children. That is what a man is to me. Having said that, I just wanted to ask you your thoughts on your son calling for the murder of 10% of black boy thugs on the corner.
I will repeat what I told you the first time you asked me that question on your show. I was appalled. I was insulted, because my goal now is to stop the killing of us by each other. I told you I reached out to the interviewers of the station that he said that on. And I expressed to them how I felt. And I still feel that way. You know, we're about, I don't want to use your words, but you're right. We are about preserving life. And it's appalling that anybody would think that we would have to annihilate 10% of the thugs. And I want to verify that. You said all black boys. He didn't say that. He said the thugs, which is still a disgusting statement. But just have it understood that he said the thugs on the corner. But that's still, no way am I validating that either. But I'm just saying, he was saying he may have to kill 10% of those guys. I'm saying you should never, ever advocate for the killing of your own people or anyone else for that nature except in self-defense.
If you listen carefully, what he says is that 10% are unreachable, and that this 10%, that is what he would classify as the boy.
But if you look at the context, Lenon, of the whole conversation, he was speaking about the guys on the corner, because he said, when they find out I'm not scared of them, then I can talk to them.
Yeah, I'm referring to the second clip where he kind of doubled down on that. And people, you can go and check out the video. It is clear as day from my vantage point. The second question I'd like to ask, and let me ask you this, to calling for the 10%, murdering 10% of black boys, do you think that is the rhetoric of a man of honor?
No, I never said that he has been honorable in everything he's done, Leonard. Come on now.
So the answer is no.
Of course.
Okay. The next question I want to ask, there was a part...
In that statement, Leonard, the answer is no. You're right. That's not an honorable thing to say and do.
Okay. When we talk about men of honor, that is also about being honest and being truthful, correct?
I agree.
Are you a descendant of Frederick Douglass?
I would say that, and I'll say this on your show, I would say that since I made that statement, I have done some intense investigating.
And what was that statement?
I said that I had gotten my results back from the Ancestry.com. And I said, based on what I had and what the other gentleman had, who is a direct descendant from Frederick Douglass family, that they were not similar. So he said that as a result of that, we're not related because it would be similar. But since then, I found that not necessarily to be true. And I talked to genealogists and other people about this, because my whole thing was, I felt, and I said this on your show, that I was going to finally put this thing in the bag by taking the test. And sure, I was surprised when it didn't come to what I thought it should be and what the gentleman said it should be. But I'm coming to understand that that's not the bottom line. And I'm not trying to cloud the future. If anyone wants to check into it, they can find out about their own family and see that there are more strands to this than just taking a $99 test and calling it a wrap. It's not that simple. And I still stick to that today. And I also said when I took that test, that if I found out anything to be different, I will publicly state it. And I have publicly stated that there has been some difference of the final conclusion based on Ancestry.com.
So the answer to the question, is that a yes or no, that you are a descendant of Frederick Douglass?
The answer is what I just told you.
Was that a yes or a no?
It's what I just told you. We're right back where we were before, Leonard.
I totally agree with that. Bullshitting is bullshitting. It don't matter who's bullshitting.
That's right.
Let me ask you this. Another thing is that men of honor, we don't bullshit. Let me ask you one other thing. In the documentary, there was a segment inside the documentary.
I don't bullshit. They can investigate themselves if they want to find out what I'm saying is true.
So you are a descendant or no?
I said what I said.
Okay, exactly. All right. Last thing, men of honor. Again, men of honor are also honest and we're sincere. And the official members of Frederick Douglass lineage, they have actually issued public statements that you guys were in fact not descendants. Let me say this. Let me ask one last thing, and then I'll be up out of here. When we talk about men of honor, part of being a man of honor is admitting the truth about where we are at in our lives, but then also where other people are at in their lives. This also includes our own sons. There was a portion inside the documentary where I play a segment of Umar Johnson doing a live stream. And in that live stream, he's talking to a woman and he says, well, hold on. And I'm paraphrasing here. Hold on a second. Let me go turn the heat down. And he gets up and he goes off camera. Mm-hmm. And then we hear this inhalation, as it were. We hear this heavy sniffing followed by a sense of relief. And it sounded something as to the effect of, and then he comes back onto camera shortly thereafter. What were your thoughts about that?
First, let me apologize for using profanity. The past profanity that I just used. My thoughts on that were, it appears from my own life that it appears and it sounds, and I want to fix something else you said. You said his father accused him of being a scammer. You didn't say that in this time, but you said it in the past. I've never accused my son of being a scammer. What I said was Black's Law Dictionary states, based on the way that he's handling this situation, that he's a scammer. Okay, I want that understood. I was speaking from the dictionary's term of what a scam is or a fraud or whatever the case may be. I have not and I will not call my son what anyone else wants me to call him until such time as I see enough validation for me. That's not saying that he's not. He may be, but I haven't had enough for me. Does it mean that I sign on to what he's doing? Heck no. But that's still not for me to say he's a scammer because I don't know the ins and outs and everything about any of this money. But I'm sure in the end it'll all come out. So our sniffing, what sounded to be sniffing to us off camera, it sounded like sniffing.
Okay, well, what do you mean by that, sir?
I mean, it sounded like he inhaled something. I don't know if it was drugs. I don't know what it could have been. You know, who knows? Maybe he did that. I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm just being frank. Now, I mean, if you don't like that, I'm sorry, but that's the truth.
Well, I can tell, and I'm just going to be straightforward here. Again, the denial is in full effect. You keep it in one
full effect. Your disregard for the fact I don't necessarily have to agree with you, and I don't have to be in denial because I just believe.
And I understand. You're his father. And again, this gets back to what I pointed.
Country doesn't like black people to be preyed on or to be used as flunkies any more than you do, Leonard. I don't like it. I hate it. I hate it.
Yeah, like I was going to say, again, this is your son, and sometimes it's a little bit more difficult. I think in many cases it's more difficult for it to admit the truth that is right there.
My man, let me know. When you get to MD, let me know.
For us to come to the truth of what is clearly evident.
What I do like about this platform, Leonard, is that you don't control it. I want you to know that.
I don't know what you're saying. I think
you cut me off on your platform when I tried to say something to you. You muted me out. You told me you would shut me down if I kept talking. You know, not that I was going to offend you in any way, but you didn't want to hear what I had to say. But now you don't have that control. That's all I was saying.
I don't see why that's irrelevant, but it is what it is. If you don't mind, when we talk about men of honor, I wanted you to address whether or not you were related to Frederick Douglass. You didn't give a straight answer. The sniff didn't give a straight answer. You did give a straight answer for the murdering of 10% of black boys. Let me ask you this: when it comes to the financial,
basis to say that I'm not being genuine.
let me ask you this.
I'm asking you a question, sir. Are you saying I'm not being genuine?
Let me ask you this: when it comes,
I'm not being genuine. Then come on now. Now you're the BS now, but you won't even answer me.
okay, there's no need to get like that. You almost kind of
What?
you're kind of behaving like Umar right now. That's interesting.
There we go. See, this is what you did on your platform.
Here we go.
I'm very well control myself. Believe me.
Okay, well, please continue to do so. Let me just ask you one last question. Let me ask you one last question. When it comes to men of honor, how do you feel about the financial aspect of this? And I'd outlined that Umar Johnson had said many years ago that he had collected $750,000, and online records showed that the school sold for $400,000. This has been over a year and 2 months since he's still collecting donations. That would have left at least $350,000 remaining. What are your thoughts on that? And then on top of that, the fact that over the last year he has continued to collect donations and there's no renovations that have taken place.
Well, let me say firstly, and I'm sure this gentleman can tell you, I came in here with a pretty congenial attitude.
Mm-hmm.
I still have one. I had no reason to feel any way but that. But I will be heard if I'm feeling I'm being disrespected and someone won't let me speak if I let them speak. But to go further, I think the whole thing monetarily has been mishandled. It obviously appears that way. You know, I've spoken about the lack of transparency from the door. And I'm going to bring this up only because he knows I got to put him on blast, my man on the right here. Because he and I got to know one another from him seriously cheerleading for my son when I used to tell him, no, you need to just give it time before you jump on the bandwagon. So, I mean, you know, there's a lot of things I don't like, Lenon, especially with people's money. And especially these days and times, man, with this virus thing going on and people being put off out of work, if they're still sending him money, that means they're giving him their last. So I don't know what's going on with this money. I don't know what he's done with it. I don't know what he plans to do with it. All I know is that things need to come to a screeching halt, like yesterday, so that he can, number one, get credibility back into the community that believes in him or has believed in him. And number two, so that people can feel confident about where the money is or where it's gone. That's what I think about it.
Okay, 750,000, online records show 400,000. There should have been at least $350,000 remaining going back a year ago. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, to be frank with you, and I'm gonna be honest, he had 750,000 from his own words over a year ago.
Yeah.
He flashed some donations the other day. 1 and 1 has always been 2. So I'm sure 750 plus, and that plus is a big question mark. So I don't think we need to throw that number around anymore.
Yeah, and I was referring to when he actually made that statement of 750,000. That was the last update that he gave. Right. And then, of course, in February of 2019, he had acquired the building for 400,000. That should have left at least 350, or that should have left 350,000. We could even say 300,000. Your thoughts on where that money might be?
No clue, man. No clue at all.
Okay, and then one last thing, in terms of since he acquired the building, he's been collecting donations consistently. Where has all that money gone?
You talking like I know. I never claimed to know where the money is, my man.
Yeah, and this is just to illustrate the point that no one knows because there's no transparency, and this is why the scam has been effective for the last decade.
And okay, so we all know that, I think.
So your son is a scammer?
We all know that you feel that the scam has been in effect because of the lack of transparency. We all know that. Oh yeah, I gotta watch you, man.
Oh man, definitely, man. We appreciate y'all, man. I'm looking at the time. I was supposed to have a movie night at 8 o'clock. My kid,
oh man,
like, yo, Dad.
I got an hour and a half ride back.
Hey, Dad. Hey, yo, what we doing, Dad? I know you got the podcast, but yo, Dad, what we doing? Yeah, I appreciate everybody on the panel. Lenon, I appreciate you. We appreciate you. We know you got your show going on at 9. I won't be checking it out live. I'm gonna be chilling with the kids.
Do what you got to do.
Check that out later on. Mr. Johnson, appreciate you traveling all the way down here. The people in the chat room, the moderators. Oh God, of course. If you ain't got anything else, man, we can wrap this on up.
Can I say one last thing?
Absolutely.
Of course.
Everybody, please, in light of this coronavirus, do not believe the fallacy that black people can't catch it. Black people have caught it. Black people have it right now. Very well-known celebrities. So that's a fallacy. Number two, please practice safety. Practice safe precautions with this virus. Don't think that because that's your family, you can't catch something from them because that's your family. That's ignorant. People are dying from this virus, and we got to get real about it. And if we don't, there's going to be a lot more of us dying because of our ignorance. I appreciate that, man.
Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Well, we're coming to an end of the program today. Everybody that's in the audience right now, smash that like button and make sure that you follow both of these brothers, Lenon and Jamal Johnson, on their platforms if you want to keep up with them. That's all I got on my side of the table, Sam, man.
Yeah, that's all I got too, man. We're going to get up out of here. Stop paying these bills. Shut the lights off. Y'all guys stay safe out there during this quarantine day number 6. Check out Lenon Honors live stream coming real soon. Go check out Mr. Johnson on his platforms. Yeah. Sam Man, Viral Hip Hop News. Oh, God, Hip Hop News Uncensored. Together, we are the Hip Hop Uncensored Podcast. Over and out.
You have a good night. Peace.